All right, let's talk some initial shooting impressions of this Howa 1500 chambered in 308. And in a nutshell, there it is. That's a sub MOA group. It's about just about 0.9 inches, just shy of 0.9 inches at 100 yards using the Federal 150 grain soft point standard ammunition that you pick up for about 15-16 bucks for a box of 20. Now, I won't call Federal crappy ammo. Federal is actually really good ammunition. I like the brand. There is better ammo out there. If you get ammo from Hornady, or you get some match grade stuff, or even better yet, if you hand load for this particular rifle, that group size will shrink up. This rifle performance is outstanding in my opinion. This is an excellent rifle and I highly, highly recommend it. I like this rifle over my Savage. Now granted, I'm talking about the Savage Axis. I'm not talking about the other Savages out there. Savages are excellent rifles, but this rifle does have a leg up just because of the fact the trigger in the action is so much better than the Savage Axis model. It is what it is. The scope, the Nico Sterling scope, performed outstanding. The guy that bore sighted this scope when I got this rifle, he did such a good job that my first round at 50 yards was right on the bullseye. It was right on the bullseye and it was left maybe not even half an inch. So that was an awesome, awesome job on the guy that did the bore sight for the scope. So it only took me a few rounds to zero in. Then once I got her zeroed in at 100, I started putting out groups like this. Now, one thing to say with this rifle, because of the profile of the barrel, this is not a heavy barreled rifle or a bull barrel. So if you shoot it and it gets really hot, this group size will grow a little bit. That's one thing I've noticed. It'll grow out to about 1.5 inches, and if you keep shooting it, it'll get out to 2 inches, but that's okay. A lot of the times you're not going to be doing sustained type fire with a bolt action rifle of this nature. Most of the time people use this for hunting purposes and whatnot, or if you see, police agencies, this would be a great rifle for a police marksman, and a police marksman isn't going to be shooting round after round after round. These rounds were fired from pretty much almost a cold bore. At the time the bore was barely even warm, and I fired these 3 rounds in a kind of semi-rapid fashion. I took my time with each shot, obviously, to pay attention to heartbeat, breathing, trigger control, all that good stuff. But as you can see, as long as you don't put too many through your barrel, that's what your performance is. So I'm very impressed. Now, this is another rifle that proves the fact that you don't need to spend thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars to get a gun that performs. Now, granted, again, my caveat to all this is I'm not really talking about long-range competition shooting. Shooting 1,000 yards or more. You do have to put in a little bit more money into that because you're talking about a different class of shooting extreme long range type stuff. You need to spend a little bit more money because you are going to need a little bit more of a consistent setup. But from 0 to 1,000 yards, this will work. This will hit a target. With groupings like that, I have no concerns whatsoever that this will hit a target at 1,000. In fact, I also took this out to the 600 meter target today. I was shooting at an 18-inch plate, and 600 meters is 656 yards. And figuring out the holdover with the scope was a little bit of a pain in the rear end just because of the fact that I only have it sighted in at 100 yards. I'm going to change that soon because I don't like my rifle sighted in at just at 100. I'd rather it be sighted in at 300, 400 yards. That's just me. That's just because I prefer to shoot a little bit farther with the rifles. But with the 100 yard zero, I had to hold over quite a bit. It took me a few rounds to kind of figure out holdover. But I started smacking that target, and I was really impressed. The feel of this rifle is great. The trigger is outstanding. The stock itself, before I never really thought much of the Hogue rubberized stock. It does add a little bit of weight to the rifle, but I tell you what, after shooting it, I really like the feel of it now. Recoil, the pad does mitigate a little bit of recoil. Granted, the 308 is not a very heavy recoiling rifle, but still, It does mitigate that recoil a little bit. The 308 recoil out of this, it's heavy enough, it's just a nice easy push. There's no snap to it, nothing like that, just a nice easy push, easy recoil, easy to get back on target and continue shooting. The action itself, nice and smooth, had no issues with the action, no issues with the safety, no malfunctions in feeding whatsoever. And again, I'm extremely impressed. The scope, all the settings, the very little bit that I had to adjust was spot on. I did about a little bit in elevation adjustment from the 50 yard to the 100 yard. I had to adjust my bullet impact down a little bit to get it centered out on the 100 yard, and I did a little bit of windage, and the clicks held true. It's 1/4 MOA adjustment, which I like. I really like the 1/4 MOA, which is a big plus over a lot of like the NC Star scopes, which are only half MOA adjustment. 1/4 MOA really allows you to fine tune those groups. The parallax on the scope here worked out great. Setting it, of course, I had it set at 50 for my initial, set it at 100 to get my groupings here, and then of course I went ahead and put it on the infinity setting for longer range. Nothing in the scope gave me any issues at all. The clarity is surprisingly good for this model of scope. This is a lower end tier scope. The scope rings are Nico Stirling. They worked out just fine. Granted, the guy that put them on really knew what he was doing. They're all Loctite. They got Loctite in them. They're torqued to the correct specs. They're not over torqued. They're not under torqued. A lot of people don't understand if you over torque a scope ring and cinch it too tight, you could affect the performance of a scope. A lot of people don't know that, so you don't want to over torque a scope. So again, the whole setup proved to work really well. This is a rock mount bipod. In fact, I was shooting off uneven ground, so I had to adjust each bipod leg at a little bit of a different setting, so that way I could maintain my level the best I could, because that's important when you're shooting good groups. Especially when you start getting into long range, you want your rifle to be level. When you start getting your rifle canted left or right, that's going to affect where your shot placement is. So the rock mount bipod, it's a lower end bipod, but it worked just perfect. It stayed, did exactly what I wanted it to do. And again, this is a very excellent rifle. This is another rifle that proves you don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars if you want to shoot good. Don't worry about spending all that money on technology. Just learn your fundamentals, and you start doing stuff like this with sub $500 rifles. If you kind of see the trend that's happening on my channel, you can kind of see where I'm getting at. You've seen videos of me shooting my Savage Axis, also sub MOA. You saw me shooting my ARs out to 500 meters and hitting the targets. You saw me shoot that AK underfolder out to 600 meters and smack the target. So you kind of see where the trend is. Learn to shoot first. Because I tell you right now, if you can take an average Joe blue collar type gun like this and produce groups like that at 100 yards, if you take a multi-$1,000 setup that's extremely accurate and it's got all the Gucci gear and the fancy barrels and everything, man, it's child's play. It's utter child's play. So that's why, you've seen me in my videos before, I stress getting out there, learning the fundamentals. Talk to guys like Mr. Surgical Precision, Civilian Marksman. I've got them listed on my front page. If you don't want to believe me, talk to those guys. Those guys shoot long range all the time. They'll tell you the same stuff. You got to get your fundamentals down, because if you don't have your fundamentals down, man, there ain't no amount of technology that's going to make up for it. So all right, I don't want to be rambling. I'm going to stop this video. Again, great rifle. Howa gets a thumbs up from me. I'm going to be shooting this a lot more, and I'll actually get some video. I apologize I didn't really videotape this shoot, just because sometimes I go out into the range, I honestly don't want to worry about videotaping. I want to focus on getting the rifle set up, getting it sighted in correctly. So there's a lot of times I go out to the range, I don't even take the camera, just because I don't want to worry about videotaping. That's just, I just want to shoot, spend some time with family, concentrate on the firearm itself and not have to worry about cameras and making sure the shot's good. The angle's good. You can see what I'm doing, all that good stuff. So, all right, with that said, thanks a lot for watching. Post up your videos. I encourage all of you, even if your groups are 1.5 inches or 2 inches at 100 yards, it doesn't matter. Don't get into the mindset that it has to be sub MOA. Any budget priced rifle, if you shoot an 1.5-inch group at 100 yards, that's still damn good shooting. You're still right on the money. So don't play into the fact that, oh, they got to be a 1/2 inch or less. If you got any videos of you shooting your rifles, put them on this page. Add them as a video response. Man, I like to see people out there shooting, getting to know their gear, getting to know their setups. Post them up. Don't feel bad. Even if you're shooting 3-inch groups with a Mose in the gun or something, post it up. That's still good shooting in my opinion. So, all right, thanks for watching, and keep it safe.